All right, in this chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how you can provide localizations and different translations for different regions and languages of those who would be using your platform. Okay. Now, Liferay has a number of built-in localization tools that allow us to not only create but display, even in some cases dynamically, the different localizations and translations needed for those different users for things like pages, as well as the actual assets or content itself. Okay. Now, there are a few things both you as the site administrator and your users can do to determine which language will be on display. Users can actually go into their own user account and they can determine or select their specified language. Okay. Now, this list is actually going to come from a list of languages at the top level of the platform. So in the control panel, in the instance settings, the platform administrator can select which languages will be available on the entire platform. Okay. Of those languages, a user can select which languages they would like to display. Once those languages are available, we also have the language widget, and we also are able to configure which languages display for that at a site level as well. So there are a couple of different places, like I said, instance level, site level for determining which languages are available, and then a user can choose what they want to see, or they can use the language widget if it's available on a site to determine which language they want to display as well. Okay. All right, like I said, in the instance level and the site level, you can determine which languages are available. Now, the site level configuration for languages is ultimately determined by the instance level configuration of languages. For example, if at the instance level I have English, French, and German, maybe Japanese, at the site level I could not add, let's say, Cantonese or something along those lines. The instance level needs to determine the entire list of languages that will be supported all throughout the platform. And at a site level, we can then get more specific. Okay, so that's how it's going to be working with the language settings at the instance and the site level. Okay, and we can, of course, provide custom translations for those as well for things like the pages and the assets. Now, Liferay provides translations for all of the Liferay specific text. Okay, so for example, when I open up the menu, I see the control panel, I see the user panel, and I see the site administration panel. All of those would be translated into whatever language is selected by default. It's nothing that you need to do. It's just going to be pre-provided for you by the platform itself. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to see the platform in Japanese, when I clicked on Japanese or perhaps selected it as my user language, I could go ahead and open up the menu and see all of those options in Japanese. Okay. Now, when it comes to certain resources where you have provided the text or perhaps the asset itself, that's where you and your team will be responsible for providing the translation. So if I've created a welcome page or I've created an About Us page, I can actually provide a translation for those using the little flag option that you would see anywhere you have one of those fields. So anytime you see a field on the platform with a flag, whether that's a page or a content field, you can provide a translation for that field there. And when that language is selected, you'll be able to actually see the translation on display. And once those translations have been created and saved, when a user is viewing the site from their language, again, either selected through the user account or through the language widget, what they will see is all of the available translations for that language. Okay. Now, the way this is going to work is in the instance or site level, you're going to have a default language for the entire platform. So let's assume that English is the platform default language because that's the language we're speaking now. And let's say that you have Spanish as an available option on a site. If I provide Spanish translations for some content, but not others, what a user will see is they will see Spanish for each of the resources that have a translation, but not for the resources that do not. So for example, if I have two web content articles, one is translated, one is not, they will see both the Spanish and the English. So the default for those assets that do not have translations is going to be the default language selected on the platform. So keep that in mind. You can actually change the default language of a site as well. So for example, for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts, we have hotels and resorts all over the world. So let's say we have a hotel or resort in Germany, let's say Berlin. It might make the most sense to set the default language for that site as German. And perhaps we can have our German content team primarily responsible for creating the content for that particular site. Now, that being said, you might have other languages available, such as English or Spanish or Dutch or any other language that users might be using when visiting the site. All right, so let's go ahead and summarize this then. So Liferay provides a number of options you can use out of the box for providing localization and translations for your users. There are a number of default translations on the platform itself, and there are a number of default languages that you can expect to make available on the platform as well. You can use things like the language widget on a page to select a language, or users can select it from their account itself. And of course, we select the translations at either the platform level or the site level. Okay, remember the platform level is going to include all of the languages available on the platform, and the site level is where we can get more specific and even change the default language if it makes sense. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and dive in and provide some translations for the Livingston Hotel at Barcelona. All right, so let's get started.